This is OwlUp, where learning happens in minutes, not hours. For a deeper journey, explore all our courses at owlup.co. Now, let's dive in. Welcome back to Chapter 2 of our series, Resilience and Hope, Lessons from World War II Survivors. In this episode, titled From Enemy Lines to Personal Triumph, we'll explore how the harrowing experiences of war shaped the lives and personal development of those who lived through it. So, grab your favorite cup of coffee and let's dive in. Gunfire fades. A bomber pilot's raft drifts for weeks. A legless ace plans his next escape in a prison camp. A young officer in a frozen forest swallows his fear to lead. Here's the paradox. Some of the most broken moments in war created the strongest lives in peace. Some veterans later said the real battle didn't start under fire. It started after the shooting stopped. No clear orders, no map. Just memories that woke them at 3 a.m., and a life that no longer fit quite right. Yet, amid that chaos, something unexpected often began. Not a return to who they were, but the slow construction of someone new. Psychologists now call part of this process post-traumatic growth. It's not guaranteed, and it never erases the damage, but in lab data and life stories, a pattern appears. People who find even a small foothold, one steady friend, one meaningful task, one stubborn belief that tomorrow might matter, can start to climb. Think of it less as bouncing back and more as learning to walk again on unfamiliar ground, step by deliberate step, until the path itself reshapes where you're headed. Researchers studying World War II have traced this slow climb in surprising places. In Red Cross letters that became lifelines for POWs. In meticulous training logs kept by injured pilots. In the way small routines, shaving, making a bed tight, sharing a joke, helped men hold on to a sense of self when everything else was stripped away. Over time, patterns emerged. Those who found even tiny pockets of control, connection, and meaning often did better. Not because their pain was smaller, but because their daily choices kept carving fresh tracks through the wreckage of what had happened. Louis Zamperini didn't know the odds when his B-24 went down. In the Pacific Theater, barely more than half of captured Americans survived their time as POWs. He only knew that each day in the raft, and later in the camp, had to be split into pieces small enough to endure. One bird spotted, one memory told, one silent decision not to hate so much that it hollowed him out. That breaking life into pieces shows up again and again in the records. Douglas Bader, sitting in a German prison with 2 artificial legs and no cockpit to climb into, still kept to a pilot's rhythm. He shaved, he exercised, he planned escapes he knew might fail. On paper, it looks trivial. In context, it was a refusal to let the war decide who he was allowed to be. Dick Winters, encircled at Bastogne, later talked less about heroics and more about preparation. Long before the snow and shells, he had drilled, read field manuals, studied leadership. When the crisis came, he wasn't inventing courage from scratch. He was spending a savings account he'd been quietly building in calmer years. Modern neuroscience gives these stories a kind of X-ray. Repeated stress doesn't just leave memories, it lays down stronger pathways in brain regions that scan for danger and can weaken those that plan, reflect, and connect. But circuits are not destiny. Targeted rehabilitation, physical therapy, structured routines, learning new skills, acts like deliberate practice for the nervous system. Veterans who accessed the GI Bill didn't just change their paychecks, they immersed themselves in environments that rewarded focus, cooperation, and long-term thinking. Over time, classrooms, workshops, and union halls nudged attention away from the past battlefield toward future projects. By 1956, billions in education benefits had flowed to millions of ex-servicemen. The result wasn't only more diplomas, it was a silent shift in identity. Soldier could sit alongside engineer, teacher, parent, councilman. Community recognition, elected offices, veterans groups, simple neighborhood respect reinforced that new story. The same networks that once moved units across Europe were now moving kids into schools and ideas into local government. Your challenge this week: notice one area where you feel boxed in by something that already happened to you. Don't try to overcome it. Instead, do what those veterans did in slow motion. Pick a tiny, repeatable action that belongs to the person you'd rather be known as 5 years from now. Reader, mentor, creator, organizer, and perform it at the same time each day. Nothing dramatic. Consistency over intensity. At the end of the week, ask, did that small ritual make it even 5% easier to see yourself as more than the hardest thing you've lived through? A veteran studying on the GI Bill after years in a camp once described his first semester not as freedom, but as learning how to sit still without scanning the exits. That shift didn't happen in a single inspiring lecture. It came from hundreds of small, almost boring repetitions, showing up to class, rereading notes when his mind slipped back to the past, letting classmates become more than strangers. Neuroscientists now see similar patterns in brain scans of people rebuilding after injury. The circuits for planning and relating don't light up with one grand decision, but with many modest, structured efforts that slowly compete with old alarm signals. A useful way to picture this is like learning to play a new instrument after years of only hearing sirens. At first, every chord sounds wrong, your fingers fumble, and the sirens still drown things out. But if you keep returning to the same simple scales day after day, the music starts claiming its own space in your nervous system, note by practiced note. Future implications. Tomorrow's resilience work may feel less like fixing damage and more like coaching a new style of living. As neurofeedback, VR, and genetic insights sharpen, support could arrive the way storm alerts do: early, personalized, and adaptive. Teams facing disasters or layoffs might train with veteran-inspired drills that rehearse calm under pressure, shared decision-making, and rapid regrowth, so that when crisis hits, they're not improvising hope, they're deploying a practiced skill set. Growth after hardship isn't a test you pass once, it's more like tending a small garden beside a scarred tree. Some seasons you'll add skills, conflict management, financial planning, new friendships, that act like fresh roots. Other seasons, rest does the work. The point isn't to erase the storm, but to keep expanding the part of you that can weather the next one. Start with this tiny habit. When you catch yourself replaying an old enemy line in your head, a criticism, betrayal, or failure, pause and quietly say, "That was then. Now I'm on my side." Right after that, take one slow breath in and out while placing your hand on your chest, as if you're literally switching teams to your own. Each time you do it, you're training your brain to move from battle mode to self-ally mode, one tiny moment at a time. This was OwlUp, your daily step forward. This series continues with more chapters on OwlUp.co. Visit OwlUp.co to access the complete course and continue your learning journey. See you there!